Hey y'all, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are when you see this video. Thank you for joining me, Dorothea, on Through an Orthodox Christian Lens. It is November 12th, 2025. So, as we know, when Trump came into office, he was supposed to be working on cutting, he actually, at the beginning of his term, like 2 months in, he was talking about cutting the military budget in half, believe it or not. People might have forgotten that, but he was saying that. He was talking about still getting our troops out of Syria. He was talking about no wars, that he was the peace president. And as you see, that all changed by the summer with the bombing of Iran's supposedly nuclear facilities. And then it went to his issue with Venezuela, Colombia, about the supposedly narco terrorists and these boats that nobody can prove who that in them is actually drug dealers or smugglers. In fact, the Pentagon said they didn't know who they were. We don't know who's on the boats. And then the Nigeria thing, oh, we've got to go over there and help the Christians, even though he, generally speaking, well, overall, the U.S. has not done anything for Christians in foreign policy or in any capacity for, I don't even remember it ever happening, to be honest, in my lifetime. And maybe before that, who knows? But that there's Christians that were cleansed out of Iraq. There's Christians in Syria that have been terribly persecuted. There's Christians, yes, in Africa. There's Christians everywhere. There's Christians in Ukraine. And, you know, how much has our government done anything about that? I don't think it's done anything. So now, and of course there's the Christians in Palestine that Huckabee all of a sudden realized in his last visit there a few months ago, where he woke up to the fact that Christians were there, and many of these Christians, Palestinian Christians, Orthodox Christians, have ancestors that have been there for hundreds of years, and go back to the time when Christ was walking the earth. Anyway, now, you know, the Gaza plan that they keep talking about they want to do. Well, instead of closing some bases in Europe, that we thought that might happen, instead of just closing some bases anywhere in the world, no, they've decided to create a new base at the Gaza border. U.S. to establish large military base on Gaza border. Washington has recently taken control of Gaza aid coordination with Israel through its new command center in Kiryat Gat. Or Gat, however you want to say it. The U.S. plans to establish a large military base near the Gaza Strip to host international forces tasked with maintaining the ceasefire. According to the report, the base will accommodate several thousand troops and cost an estimated $500 million. Again, let me remind you, they don't have money for, and you know, it was taken to the Supreme Court. Trump saying, "Oh, we can't give SNAP, all these, we can't give all that to, we can't give food to people. We can't give food to people. We can't do that. Sorry, we don't have the money." but we're going to build a $500 million base on the Gaza border. And we're going to give millions, or was it billions, to Argentina. And we're going to continue giving billions to Israel. And we're going to give billions to, I hope at this point that they're not still giving billions to Ukraine, but who knows? I haven't really read on that lately, but let's go back to the article. A security official told the outlets the project marks a major shift for ISI, which has historically resisted foreign involvement in occupied territories. The move underscores Washington's intent to assume direct control over Gaza operations. Michael Milstein, a senior researcher at Tel Aviv University's Dayan Center and former head of Palestinian affairs in Israel in ISI military intelligence, said the U.S.-led Civil Military Coordination Center, the CMCC, in Kiryat Gat, will be responsible for most operations in Gaza, and ISI's status as the central player in the Strip is about to change. The planned facility is expected to serve as headquarters for the International Stabilization Force, ISF, for Gaza, part of the post-war framework outlined by U.S. President Trump. The ISF would include troops from Egypt and Qatar and work alongside vetted Palestinian police units to secure borders and prevent weapons smuggling. Shomrim reported that the U.S. has already advanced talks with Israeli officials and is surveying sites along Gaza's perimeter. Security sources quoted by the outlet said the establishment of the base would indicate a strong role from Washington in post-war Gaza. A strong role. The U.S., however, has repeatedly denied plans to deploy troops inside Gaza itself, insisting that any troops on the ground would only take on supervisory roles. The CMCC in Kiryat Gat, established last month to coordinate ceasefire monitoring and aid delivery, is already replacing ISI as the main overseer of humanitarian operations. Over 40 countries participate in the center's work, which U.S. Navy Captain Tim Hawkins said helps sort through fact from fiction and get a clear understanding of what is happening on the ground. Despite Washington's takeover, aid flow into Gaza remains severely restricted. Gaza's government media office said that since the U.S.-backed plan took effect, only 28% of the agreed 600 daily aid trucks have entered the enclave, and that over 240 Palestinians have been killed under the so-called ceasefire that took effect last month. I'm not crazy about this. I know maybe some people are thinking, if we're there, the ISIS won't be able to continue eliminating the Gazans. But, I don't know. I really don't know. It doesn't seem like they're doing much about the aid issue. I'm not feeling like this is going to go anywhere towards real humanitarian help. And I hope I'm wrong. I really do hope I'm wrong. Now, I don't know if you remember me talking about, and first I just want to make a general comment on this whole thing that's going on with ISI, okay? That's the ISRAEL. ISIS. I want to make a comment on what's been going on with the Epstein files, with, this huge network that's spreading now that's also, we find out, is also happening in Africa, that Epstein is connected to Assad, and that he was basically doing spy work and working through smuggling. I forget what he was bringing in there. Now, I can't remember off the top of my head right at this minute. But there was more going on than the sex trafficking ring, which was bad enough. Lots of blackmail, lots of bribery, lots of smuggling. Maybe I think it was drugs. I'm not sure off the top of my head. But the point is, this is a massive ring, and there is a problem with the sex trafficking type rings, even in Izzy itself. Weird rituals going on there that happened. It was reported a few months back. Some women came up, Izzy women came forward to say that they were victims of this. It just seems to be going all over the place. And I also told you that during the Izzy-Iran 12-day war, many of the wealthy Izzies took their boats, their yachts, and left because of the war and went to Cyprus. And I told you that the one of the mayors or representatives, state representative, the country's representative in their government was was worried and complaining about all of these Izzies coming into their country. And then he was called an anti-Semite, of course. What else would he be called? So this is a problem, and the reason why it's so important is because the saints and the elders have warned us about this issue. Elder Joseph said that they are the movers and shakers in the world. They have the power. Saint Paisios said they use black magic. They use terrible things in order to manipulate and blackmail and all the things that they do. And that's not talking about J's and all the J's out there, the JEWS. No. There's plenty of JEWS J's that are against what's been happening to Gaza and the Palestinians. There are plenty of decent, compassionate, good J's. So I'm talking about the Z's, who are extremists and radicals, and that would be the Z meaning the ZIONISTS. There's radical extremist types out there that are the ones that I think our elders and saints have warned us about, and that's why I'm bringing this up, because there's a lot of things going on, and it just seems to be revolving around this little state in the Middle East, this supremacist state, this apartheid state. It seems to have its tendrils in every country. We may not know exactly, but we know that they talk about Europe, they talk about America, how we know Africa, Ukraine. There's a lot of countries, and this is not good. I want to give you one more story. This is why I brought this up, because as I mentioned the Cyprus issue back on October 23rd, Cyprus, Netanyahu's new Haifa, an influx of Izzy settlers and investors into Cyprus has raised alarms among Cypriots and regional observers who see echoes of Haifa's past in Larnaca's present. Beneath the real estate surge lies a deeper Izzy project to reshape the Eastern Mediterranean order, one in which Cyprus is both gateway and outpost. And don't forget that the MI6 the Brits were using radar from this site, from Cyprus, during the 12-day war with the Izzies in Iran, giving all of the spot, actually, it wasn't that. I think it was actually they were giving coordinates for bombing the Gazans. But anyway, I think they might have been. I'm not sure if they're involved in that now. The Iran thing in this capacity through Cyprus. But in any case, the Cypriots have gone through enough where half of their country has been occupied by the Turks. And now you have the Izzies coming in. Okay. Last year, reports multiplied of Izzies purchasing land and property across the Republic of Cyprus, an EU member. Though the numbers remain modest, the pace of acquisitions has quickened. Some interpret this wave as a symptom of Izzy's fading self-image as the safest place for Jays. Others see it as a byproduct of the shifting geopolitical architecture of the Eastern Mediterranean, in which Cyprus occupied a critical node of Izzy Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's expanding maritime vision. Cyprus, the Mediterranean's third largest island, has been divided since Turkey's 1974 invasion of the north, which established the unrecognized Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. About 400,000 Turkish Cypriots inhabit that section under Ankara's patronage, while the internationally recognized Southern Greek Cypriot Republic, home to 1.3 million people, now finds its coastline increasingly dotted with Izzy-owned real estate. Statistics alone obscure the larger pattern. According to the Cyprus Audit Authority, non-European buyers over the past 5 years have come primarily from Lebanon, 16%, China, 16%, Russia, 14%, and Izzy, 10%. Good grief. Meanwhile, the J community in Cyprus, around 4,000 families, roughly 15,000 people, has expanded from just a few hundred 2 decades ago. In 2003, there were between 300 and 400 people, rising to around 3,500 in 2018, a modest but symbolically potent growth spurred by 3 crises: COVID-19, Izzy's judicial reform turmoil, and the war on Gaza. Yet this migration wave reflects a broader reversal, a rising number of Izzies leaving the country. The Knesset Research and Information Center reported that some 145,900 people immigrated between 2020 and 2024, a trend Yedioth Aharonoth linked to the aftermath of 7 October, warning of strategic risks. Theodosis Pippis, a researcher at the Center for International Strategic Studies and Analyses in Athens, likens the reality of Larnaca today to the city of Haifa in the 1920s in an article titled Izzy Expansion into EU via Cyprus. He says that heavy investment in coastal cities such as Haifa led to the economic control of Palestine. Pippis explains that Haifa was a sparsely populated port city similar to today's Larnaca, but after the declaration of the state of Izzy and the expulsion of Palestinians from their homes, J settlers became the majority in Haifa. Historically, the case of Haifa could deed as a foreshadowing of what could happen to Cyprus should the economic investment ensure a port city akin to Larnaca with low population density. By the time the J settlers expelled Palestinians from their homes and proclaimed Palestine as the state of Izzy, J settlers had become the majority population in Haifa. Israel's backyard in Cyprus. Beyond statistics lies a more troubling pattern: the formation of exclusive Izzy enclaves, particularly around Larnaca. Reports observe that locals are priced out. Infrastructure, synagogues, kosher supermarkets, private schools are being built quickly. The same settler colonial template used in the West Bank now appears to be taking root in places like Pila and Limassol. I'm going to make a note here for a second. What is of particular concern is that many of these settlers are not disillusioned liberals, but deeply Z's and well-resourced. In June, spokesperson for the Progressive Party of Working People, Stefanos Stefanou, said, or Stefanou probably, they are building Zai schools, synagogues, gated enclaves. Izzy is preparing a backyard in Cyprus, and this cannot be but sound the alarm for us. The Hasidic Chabad movement, known locally as Chabad, established Cyprus's first official J worship site in 2005 near Larnaca, the island's first in centuries. Today it operates 6 synagogues under the guidance of Chief Rabbi Zeev Raskin. Historically, Cyprus figured in early Z colonization schemes. A U.S. Department report, The Justice for Uncompensated Survivors Today, JUST Act report, Cyprus records that there were approximately 100 Jays in Cyprus in the early 20th century. After the rise of Nazism in 1933, hundreds of European Jays escaped Cyprus, which was a British colony at the time. The father of modern Zai, Theodore Herzl, himself, once promoted the Cyprus option as leverage in negotiations for Palestine. During the Third Zai Congress in 1899, Delegate Davy Tricht argued that Cyprus is the most suitable location, unattractive to Europeans, yet close to the land of Izzy. Invitations were issued, especially during the Third Z Congress in 1899. Tricht said, Jays shouldn't seek refuge in lands favorable for European settlement, as they would encounter resistance in every such country. They also would be able to efficiently settle in tropical regions. Given these conditions, Cyprus is the most suitable location for Jay settlement. While the island isn't a magnet for European settlers, its climate is suitable for Europeans, and notably, it is in close proximity to Izzy, serving as a gateway to it. About 2 months later, Herzl wrote, given that the Ottoman government shows no inclination to reach an agreement with us, some want to turn to this island, which is under British control and which we could enter at any time. I see. Until the next Congress, I still have control over the situation, but if no results are in hand by then, our plans will sink like water on the island of Cyprus. In 1902, Herzl submitted written evidence to the British Parliamentary Committee on Alien Immigration and circulated a pamphlet outlining how J migration to England and the U.S. could be eased by promoting colonization projects, including one in Cyprus. In the same year, he also discussed settlement proposals with British Colonial Secretary Joseph Chamberlain, mentioning the island as a possible location for J colonization and that the Muslims will move away. The Greeks will gladly sell their land at a good price and migrate to Athens or Crete. Wow. They really don't know Greeks well, do they? No, of course not. The historic J presence in Cyprus remained marginal until the early 21st century, but recent events have catalyzed a dramatic shift. The June war with Iran and escalating regional tensions last summer accelerated Izzy's purchases, particularly in coastal cities. At the height of the conflict, a Cypriot real estate platform reported that Izzy's have been actively contacting their brokers, expressing concern and impatience about the resumption of air service. Many of them say outright, "We want to go home," meaning Cyprus. The platform added that many Izzy citizens view Cyprus as a safe and stable alternative, convenient for both temporary residents and long-term investment. For many of them, Cyprus has become a second home. ISI experts, meanwhile, say, additionally, some ISIs are looking for the option to spread their finances and risks. Nevertheless, Cypriot politicians warn of opaque ownership networks. Loopholes allow companies to evade restrictions limiting non-EU nationals to 2 properties. Takis, I can't pronounce the last name. Maybe it's Haji Georgiou, something like that. Georgiou, a former member of the European Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee, recounts that a year ago the issue of ownership of non-Europeans, especially ISIs, was raised before the top state official responsible for land and property issues in Cyprus. Yes, I've heard that too. But didn't we used to say it was the Lebanese buying us out? The Greek Herald has since echoed fears of demographic engineering and warned that if such changes continue unchecked, they may lead to the irreversible loss of its ancient Hellenic identity. And this part is very important, okay? Because they are concerned about that. That was what I read in the article over the summer. A wave of companies and individuals of J/ISI origin are systematically purchasing properties throughout EU Cyprus, including the Turkish-occupied north, raising public concerns about the implications of such a practice. Whatever the motives of ISI migrants, they are entering a land marked by trauma and fierce nationalism. Yep. Cypriots, though welcoming tourists, remain haunted by their own partition. Many sympathize with Gaza and resent the use of British military bases for ISIS wars. Here we go. Beneath polite coexistence, suspicion simmers. Chief Rabbi Raskin, head of the Rabbinical Court of Cyprus since 2003, has described Cyprus as ISIS' back door. According to Jonathan Brander of the Oslo Peace Research Institute, who authored the 2022 paper, A Strategic Friendship, ISI Perceptions of the ISI-Cyprus Relationships, ISI policymakers view ties with Nicosia as a cornerstone of a regional order that it is interested in shaping and preserving. 2 trajectories now define ISI policy on the island. First, Netanyahu envisioned Cyprus as part of a new geopolitical bloc, binding ISI to Europe and the Mediterranean energy network. Nicosia's willingness to host reconstruction discussions for Gaza underscores its emerging diplomatic role. Cyprus provides geographic depth, an air-sea corridor, and an EU voice friendly to Tel Aviv's ambitions. Second, ISI's deepening economic and institutional entrenchment risks transforming Cyprus into a subordinate dependency rather than an equal partner. Ankara has already grown wary, viewing this intent, as a second ISI frontier along its periphery, complementing its indirect border in Syria. Okay, so we still have, that issue going on with Turkey and ISI. A study by Tel Aviv University's Moshe Dayan Center on the 12-day ISI-Iran war's impact on the alliance between ISI, Greece, and Cyprus, namely the Mediterranean Arc, a strategic corridor connecting the Atlantic to the Indian Ocean through the Mediterranean, Red Sea, and Arabian Sea. The alliance, it says, anchors ISI's new maritime sphere of influence and deepens the rift with Turkey. Since the 2010s, cooperation between ISI and Cyprus has become a geopolitical constant. Nicosia's participation in East Med gas exploration, bolstered by support from Washington, Riyadh, and Abu Dhabi, has aligned it against Ankara. Reports last year indicated that ISI delivered 3 shipments of Barak MX air defense systems in Cyprus, a development that Turkish media warned could destabilize the region. Concerns deepened after the Cyprus Mail reported that the government's failure to deny reports about the presence of ISI security personnel at the perimeter of the Larnaca airport fence and in the air traffic control tower suggested the reports were correct and that the Republic had surrendered the security of its main airport to the security forces of another state. Intelligence bases and warnings. Multiple regional sources claim that ISI now relies on Cyprus for intelligence and operational logistics in the Levant. Cooperation reportedly includes the transfer of surveillance technology, the export of spyware through Cypriot fronts, and the establishment of joint intelligence channels for targeting Iran and the axis of resistance. According to Iranian academics, these networks, they argue, enable ISI to use Cyprus as a staging ground for simulating potential future conflicts with Hezbollah in Iran, disrupting the axis of resistance's logistical routes and targeting Iranian vessels near the island. This is exactly what the late Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah warned last June. Addressing the Cypriot government, he said that opening Cypriot airports and bases to the ISI enemy to target Lebanon would mean that the Cypriot government is part of the war and the resistance will deal with it as part of the war. 2 months later, one former senior ISI ambassador to Cyprus told the media line that these warm relations have not come at the expense of our other friends in the region, adding that we believe ISI should be integrated into the region and Cyprus can play a bridging role in this because we have equally good relations with everybody. In our mind, developing this relationship with ISI does not mean we have to sacrifice other relationships. Netanyahu has personally cultivated this transformation. During his September 2023 visit to Nicosia, he declared that the two nations have a wonderful relationship, claiming that Western civilization is the result of basically Greek culture and Judaism fused together. Sure. Barely a month later, ISI's devastating war on Gaza commenced following Operation Al-Aqsa flood. The island hosted Netanyahu's historic 2012 visit, the first of its kind following reciprocal presidential exchanges in 2011. At the time, Haaretz noted that Cypriot observers say the key to the improving relations lies in those common interests, among them what is referred to as the division of the sea and its treasures between the two countries. Lebanon is a hidden partner in this, and in the belief that ISI's good relations with Washington will magically rub off on the island. Today, a parallel development unfolds in Lebanon, where this Council of Ministries is discussing a maritime border deal with Cyprus amid warnings it could cost Lebanon around 5,000 square kilometers of maritime rights, reflecting U.S. pressure to align East Mediterranean gas interests with ISI priorities. The question now for Cypriots and the wider region is whether these shared interests bring prosperity or peril. As new settlers plant their flags and ideology on an island long scarred by division, Cyprus risks becoming another Haifa. So, if anybody is living in Cyprus and like to share your thoughts on that, that'd be great. I think there is one of my subscribers that actually is in Cyprus. I would love to hear from her on this. Has she been following any of this in her country? I can tell you what this does remind me of. This whole situation. The thought of just all these foreigners coming in, not just ISIS, but all of them coming in and moving in this island, and just, it feels really like an invasion of a bunch of people. But let me give you what I'm thinking about regarding Elder Joseph of Vataputi's words on this, his prophecies regarding the Cyprus issue, okay? Not the part that Metropolitan Neophytus has talked about. I'm talking about one of the phases in World War III that I think was important after reading this, I need to go to that because it's important. So, let me see where I can find it here.
That troops will pass through Greek.
Let me see here. Okay. This is the part that gets into the thing that happens with Turkey and Greece and the road that we discussed, the Ignatian and E65 that NATO's going to be using, but I want to get to another part that's important. Let me see, where is this here? Let me see if there's something else that I missed. Okay. Now, I'm going to read this part because it's about Cyprus. At the same time, they will rise up Muslim economic immigrants in our country, whom they will have supplied with military equipment and will follow with acts of sabotage such as blowing up bridges, roads, arson, destruction of aqueducts, and possibly even contamination of drinking water. So they have already found Yaphas with thousands of weapons, and we know from some who provoke by staying in 5-star hotels that we will suffer a violent disruption and overthrow of the legal order. The Turks will attempt the absolute surprise. They will embark their troops in ships, and they will head to land from Kavala to Athens, while as a distraction they will also attack Cyprus, as we know, where fierce battles will be fought and there will be great losses in the army and the civilian population. They will reach a breath from their target, only 6 nautical miles from the shores, the 6 miles prophesied by St. Cosmas the Anatolian. But due to the rapid descent of the Russians, they will be forced to withdraw their forces in order to defend their homeland. Then the Greek Cypriot forces will retake the occupied territories where, unfortunately, incidents of ethnic cleansing will occur. Ethnic cleansing will occur. Well, with all those people that have been trying to come into Cyprus, that's what I thought of when I read this article about the new Haifa. But then all the others that are moving in there as well. And I think this might be what they're talking about. All these foreigners that have come in, and that'll occur in Cyprus. Anyway, some thoughts there for me that I thought was important stories to share with you, like the massive base on the border of Gaza the U.S. is going to put in there. Instead of downsizing our bases, we're adding another big one in the Middle East, and I don't think anybody really wants that. We have too many as it is. And then the issue with Cyprus, and maybe that's how it ties in with Elder Joseph's prophetic words about what will happen there. Now, having said all that, as we all know, our prayers of repentance can change the details that'll happen. They could alter the details of what happens in this world war, could push it back, could change what's going to happen to a certain extent, all that stuff. All of this, I always like to remind you all and myself about that. But wanted to share that with you. Please share your comments. If you have anything to say, please share your opinions below this video on these two subjects. I think they're important. Thanks so much for watching, for following my channel. Until next time.